6 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. The Prime Minister will address the United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries in Doha, Qatar tomorrow. The Emir of Qatar has reiterated his strong resolve to continue supporting Pakistan in its development agenda. The government has increased the amount of stipend for the beneficiaries of the Benazir Income Support Program by 25%. A two-day counter-terrorism dialogue between Pakistan and the United States will begin in Islamabad tomorrow. The All Parties Hurriyat Conference has appealed to the United Nations Human Rights Council to play its role in the release of Kashmiri political prisoners languishing in different jails of India and the occupied territory. The 21st match of the Pakistan Super League Season 8 will be played between Islamabad United and Quetta Gladiators at Rawalpindi tomorrow. And now the news in detail. The Prime Minister Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif is in Qatar, where he will participate in the 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries. The 5-day conference being held in Doha will consider steps for accelerating sustainable development in the least developed countries, helping them make progress on the road to prosperity. The Prime Minister will address the conference tomorrow. The Prime Minister will also attend a reception hosted by the Emir of Qatar in honor of the heads of states and governments. Shahbaz Sharif will hold bilateral meetings and interact with the participating leaders and heads of delegation on the sidelines of the conference. At the conference, the leaders will mobilize additional international support measures and action in favor of the least developed countries. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif in a tweet has said that he will share Pakistan's perspective on the socio-economic challenges facing the least developed countries in Asia and Africa. He said the least developed countries have been badly affected by climate change, post-pandemic and geostrategic disruption in food and energy supply chains, and these global events have left them vulnerable. Shahbaz Sharif said the least developed countries will be better served by putting the welfare of the people at the center of public policy. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamd Al Thani, has reiterated his strong desire and resolve to continue supporting Pakistan in its development agenda. He expressed this resolve while welcoming the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif during a meeting in Doha today. The Emir also evinced Qatar's keen interest in enhancing economic cooperation with Pakistan. They also exchanged views on bilateral interests and to further strengthen the ongoing cooperation between Pakistan and Qatar in all fields, including trade and investment. The Emir also commended the services of the Pakistani workforce in the development of Qatar, especially the performance of Pakistani security officials on the successful holding of FIFA World Cup 2022, while acknowledging the continued Qatari support for the development projects in Pakistan. Shahbaz Sharif highlighted the vast opportunities of cooperation between the two countries. Shahbaz Sharif invited Sheikh Tamim bin Hamd Al Thani to visit Pakistan, which he accepted with pleasure. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamd Al Thani, has announced a $60 million financial contribution to the Doha Program of Action. Addressing the United Nations Conference in Doha today, he said it might be appropriate to revive the theme of the Secretary General of the United Nations, No Poverty in the World. Pakistan and the United States will hold a two-day counter-terrorism dialogue in Islamabad tomorrow. The Additional Secretary Syed Haider Shah will lead the Pakistan delegation, and the American delegation will be headed by the Acting Coordinator for Counter-Terrorism, Christopher Landberg. The dialogue is aimed at discussing common threat of terrorism, cooperation at the multilateral fora, and countering financing of terrorism. The two-day dialogue will provide an opportunity for both the sides to exchange views and share their experiences and best practices in the domain of counter-terrorism. The Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on Poverty Alleviation, Faisal Karim Kundi, says the government has increased the amount of stipend of Benazir Income Support Program by 25%. Addressing a news conference in Islamabad today, he said around 9 million people are receiving the stipend through the Benazir Income Support Program. The Special Assistant said Benazir Income Support Program has also started dynamic survey to register more beneficiaries. He said dynamic survey offices have been established in all tehsils of the country and people should visit them to get themselves registered. This is Radio Pakistan. In the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the All Parties Hurriyat Conference has appealed to the United Nations Human Rights Council and other organizations to play a dynamic role in the release of Kashmiri political prisoners languishing in different hell-like conditions jails of India and the territory. According to the Kashmir Media Service, the All Parties Hurriyat Conference spokesman, in a statement issued in Srinagar, said most of the detainees had developed various ailments threatening their life if gone untreated due to the unavailability of basic facilities including medical care and hygienic food in jails. Meanwhile, in Washington, the chairman of the World Forum for Peace and Justice, Dr. Ghulam Nabi Fai, in a statement in connection with the International Day for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation Awareness today, said celebrating the day offers no hope to the Kashmiris. The Director General International Atomic Energy Agency Rafael Grossi says Iran has made sweeping pledges of cooperation for more access of inspectors at its nuclear sites. After meeting the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and other top officials in Tehran, he said Iran has agreed to reconnect cameras and other monitoring equipment. The United Nations member states have reached a historic agreement on a treaty to protect ocean area beyond jurisdiction of any country. The United Nations Conference President Rina Lee announced the agreement after a marathon final day of talks between negotiators from more than 100 countries. She said the High Seas Treaty, which will cover almost two-thirds of the ocean that lies outside national boundaries, will provide a legal framework for establishing vast marine protected areas to protect against loss of wildlife. The treaty will protect a third of the sea and land by 2030. The Amnesty International has expressed concern over human rights violations in Afghanistan. In a statement, it called on the United Nations Human Rights Council to establish an independent investigative mechanism in Afghanistan. The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has pledged peaceful reunification with Taiwan as well as resolute steps to oppose its independence. Speaking at the opening of the annual meeting of China's parliament, Li Keqiang said Beijing stands by the One China principle, which states that Taiwan is a part of China. He said we should promote peaceful development of cross-strait relations and advance the process of China's peaceful reunification. Li Keqiang said the armed forces should boost combat preparedness. The Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu says his country is working hard to extend a United Nations-backed initiative that has enabled Ukraine to export grain from ports blockaded by Russia. In a speech at the United Nations Conference on Least Developed Countries in Doha, Qatar, he said efforts are being made for smooth implementation and further extension of the Black Sea Grain Deal. The Black Sea Grain Deal initiative, brokered by the United Nations and Turkey last July, allowed grain to be exported from 3 Ukrainian ports. North Korea has called on the United Nations to demand an immediate halt to joint military drills by the United States and South Korea, as it is an invasion against Pyongyang. In a statement, the Vice Foreign Minister Kim Song-cheong said the drills and the rhetoric from allies have pushed tensions to an extremely dangerous level. He said it is regrettable that the United Nations has consistently been silent On exercises which have a clear aggressive nature, the United States and allies have said exercises are defensive and are necessary to counter rising threats from North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear weapons program. And now cricket. The 21st match of the Pakistan Super League Season 8 will be played between Islamabad United and the Quetta Gladiators in Rawalpindi today. The match will start at 1900 hours Pakistan Standard Time. And finally, the weather report. Mainly dry weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 12 hours. However, light rain is likely at isolated places in Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk, and you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.